Hello, and welcome back to Baby Alice's stories. We now return to Men at Arms by Terry Pratchett, Part 13. People were streaming past the watch house. Carrot stopped a couple by the simple expedient of sticking out his hand. "Mr. Popley, isn't it?" he said. "How's the grocery business? Hello, Mrs. Popley."
"Ain't you heard?" said the flustered man. "The trolls have set fire to the palace."
He followed Carrot's gaze up Broadway to where the palace stood squat and dark in the early evening light. Ungovernable flames failed to billow from every window. "My word," said Carrot.
"And there's dwarves breaking windows and everything," said the grocer. "A dog's not safe." "You can't trust them," said Cuddy.
The grocer stared at him.
"Are you a dwarf?"
he said.
"Amazing. How do people do it?" said Cuddy. "Well, I'm off. I'm not stopping to see Mrs. Popley ravished by the little devils. You know what they say about dwarves."
The watch watched the couple head off into the crowd again.
"Well, don't,"
said Cuddy, to no one in particular. "What is it they say about dwarves?" Carrot fielded a man pushing a barrow. "Would you mind telling me what's going on, sir?" he said.
"And do you know what it is they say about dwarves?"
said a voice behind him.
"That's not a sir, that's throat,"
said Colin.
"And will you look at the colour of him? Should he be all shiny like that?" said Detritus. Feeling fine, said Dibbler. "Ha! So much for people importuning the standard of my merchandise." "What's happening, throat?" said Colin. "They say," Dibbler began, green in the face. "Who says?" said Carrot. "They say," said Dibbler. "You know, they. Everyone. They say the trolls have killed someone up at Dolly Sisters, and the dwarves have smashed up Chalky the Troll's all-night pottery, and they've broken down the brass bridge and—"
Carrot looked up the road.
"You just came over the brass bridge?" he said. "Yeah, well, that's what they say," said Dibbler. "Oh, I see." Carrot straightened up. "Did they happen to say, sort of in passing, anything else about dwarves?" said Cuddy. "I think we're going to have to go and have a word with the Day Watch about the arrest of Coldface," Carrot said. "We ain't got no weapons," said Colin. "I'm certain Coldface has nothing to do with the murder of Hammerhawk," said Carrot. "We are armed with the truth. What can harm us if we are armed with the truth?" "Well, a crossbow bolt can. E.g., go right through your eye and out the back of your head," said Sergeant Cullen. "All right, Sergeant," said Carrot. "So where do we get some more weapons?" The bulk of the armory loomed against the sunset. It was strange to find an armory in a city which relied on deceit, bribery, and assimilation to defeat its enemies, but, as Sergeant Cullen said, once you'd won their weapons off him, you needed somewhere to store the things. Carrot rapped on the door. After a while there were footsteps, and a small window slid back. Shook. A suspicious voice said, "Yes?" "Corporal Carrot, City Militia." "Never heard of it. Bugger off." Shook. The hatch snapped back. Carrot heard Nobby snigger.
He thumped on the door again. Yes?
I'm Corporal Carrot.
The hatch moved, but hit Carrot's truncheon as he rammed it in the hole. Cluck!
And I'm here to collect some arms for my men.
Yeah? Where's your authority?
What? But I'm...
The truncheon was knocked away, and the hatch thudded into place. Excuse me, said Corporal Nobbs, pushing past. Let me have a go. I've been here before, sort of thing. He kicked the door with the steel-capped boots, known and feared wherever men were on the floor and in no position to fight back. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Snap. I told you to bug. Auditors, said Nobby. There was a moment's silence. What? Here to take inventory? Where's your author? Oh, he says, where's my authority? Nobby leered at the guards. Oh, keeps me hanging around here while his cronies can nip out the back to bring the stuff back out of hock, eh? Oh, I never. And then, yeah, we'll get the old 1,000 swords trick, yeah? 50 crates stacked up. Turns out the bottom 40 are full of rocks. Aye. What's your name, mister? Aye. You open this door right now. The hatch shut. There was the sound of bolts being pulled back by someone who was not at all convinced it was a good idea and would be asking searching questions in a minute. Cluck, 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 cluck. Got a piece of paper on you, Fred? Quick!
Yes, but...
said Sergeant Cullen. Any paper! Now! Cullen fumbled in his pocket and handed Nobby his grocery bill just as the door opened. Nobby swaggered in at high speed, forcing the man inside to walk backwards. Don't run off, he shouted. I haven't found anything wrong.
I wasn't...
yet. Carrot had time to get an impression of a cavernous place full of complicated shadows. Apart from the man, who was fatter than Cullen, there were a couple of trolls who appeared to be operating a grindstone. Current events did not seem to have penetrated the thick walls. All right. No one panic. Just stop what you're doing. Stop what you're doing, please. I'm Corporal Nobbs. Ankh-Morpork City Ordnance Inspection City Audit. The piece of paper was waved in front of the man's eyes at vision-blurring speed, and Nobby's voice faltered a bit as he contemplated the end of the sentence. Bureau Special Audit Inspection. How many people work here? Just me. Nobby pointed at the trolls. What about them? The man spat on the floor. Oh, I thought you said people. Carrot stuck out his hand automatically, and it slammed against Detritus's breastplate. Trunk. Okay, said Nobby. Let's see what we've got here. He walked fast enough along the rack so that everyone else had to run to keep up. What's this? Don't know, eh? Sure, it's a triple string 2,000-pound carriage mounted siege crossbow with the double action windlass. Right. Isn't this a Clatchian reinforced crossbow with the goat leg cocking mechanism and the under half bayonet? Yeah. Nobby gave it a cursory examination and then tossed it aside. The rest of the night watch looked on in astonishment. Nobby had never been known to wield any weapon beyond a knife. Have you got one of those Hersheybian 12-shot bows with the gravity feed? He snapped. What you see is what we got, mister. Nobby pulled a hunting crossbow from its rack. His skinny arms twanged as he hauled on the cocking lever. So the bolts for this thing?
They're right there.
Nobby selected one from the shelf and dropped it into its slot. Then he sighted along the shaft. He turned. I like this inventory, said Nobby.
Well, take it all.
The man looked down the sights at Nobby's eye and, to Angua's horrified admiration, didn't faint.
That little bow don't scare me, he said.
This little bow scare you? Said Nobby. No.
Right, this is a little bow.
A little bow like this wouldn't scare a man like you because it's such a little bow. It'd need a bigger bow than this to scare a man like you. Angua would have given a month's pay to see the quartermaster's face from the front. She'd watched as Detritus had lifted down the siege bow, cocked it with one hand and a barely audible grunt, and stepped forward. Now she could imagine the eyeball swiveling as the coldness of the metal penetrated the back of the armorer's fleshy red neck. Now, the one behind you. That's a big bow, said Nobby. It wasn't as if the 6-foot iron arrow was sharp. It was supposed to smash through doorways, not do surgery.
Can I pull the trigger yet?
Detritus rumbled into the man's ear.
You wouldn't dare fire that thing in here. That's a siege weapon. It'd go right through the wall.
Eventually, said Nobby.
What this bit for? Said Detritus. Now look.
I hope you keep that thing maintained, said Nobby. Them things were a bugger for metal fatigue, especially on the safety catch.
What are a safety catch? Said Detritus.
Everything went quiet. Carrot found his voice a long way off. Corporal Nobbs.
Yes, sir.
I'll take over from this point, if you don't mind. He gently pushed the siege bow away, but Detritus hadn't liked the crack about people, and it kept swinging back again. Now, said Carrot, I don't like this element of coercion. We're not here to bully this poor man. He's a city employee, just like us. It's very wrong of you to put him in fear. Why not just ask? Sorry, sir, said Nobby. Carrot patted the armorer on the shoulder. May we take some weapons, he said.
What?
Some weapons for official purposes. The armorer looked unable to cope with this.
You mean I got a choice? He said.
Why, certainly. We practice policing by consent in Ankh-Morpork. If you feel unable to agree to our request, you only have to say the word. There was a faint bong as the tip of the iron arrow once again bounced on the back of the armorer's skull. He sought in vain for something to say, but the only word he could think of right now was fire. He said.
Yeah, right. Sure, take what you want.
Fine. And Sergeant Cullen will give you a receipt, adding of course that you release the weapons of your own free will.
My own free will?
You have absolute choice in the matter, of course. The man's face screwed up in the effort of desperate cogitation.
I reckon...
Yes?
I reckon it's okay for you to take 'em. Take 'em right away.
Good man. Do you have a trolley? And do you happen to know what it is they say about dwarves? Said Cuddy. It crept over Angua once again that Carrot had no irony in his soul. He meant every word. If the man had really held out, Carrot would probably have given in. Of course, there was a bit of a gap between probably and certainly. Nobby was down the end of the row, occasionally squeaking with delight as he found an interesting warhammer, or an especially evil-looking glaive. He was trying to hold everything, all at once.
Glaive.
Glaive, a sword. Then he dropped the lot and ran forward.
Oh wow! A Clatchian fire engine! This is more my meteor!
They heard him rummaging around in the gloom. He emerged, pushing a sort of bin on small squeaky wheels. It had various handles and fat leathery bags and a nozzle at the front. It looked like a very large kettle.
The leather's been kept greased too!
What is it? Said Carrot.
And there's oil in the reservoir!
Nobby pumped the handle energetically.
Last I heard, this thing had been banned in 8 countries, and 3 religions said they'd excommunicate any soldiers found using it. Anyone got a light?
Here, said Carrot. But what's...
Watch!
Nobby lit a match, applied it to the tube at the front of the device, and pulled the lever.
Rick!
They put out the flames eventually.
Needs a bit of adjustment,
said Nobby, through his mask of soot.
No,
said Carrot. For the rest of his life, he'd remembered the jet of fire scorching his face en route to the opposite wall.
But no, it's too dangerous. It's meant to be.
I mean, it could hurt people.
Ah, said Nobby. Right, you should have said.
We're after weapons that don't hurt people, right?
Corporal Nobbs,
said Sergeant Colin, who'd been even closer to the flame than Carrot.
Yes, Sarge? You heard Corporal Carrot. No heathen weapons. Anyway, how come you know so much about all this stuff? Military service.
Really, Nobby? Said Carrot.
Had a very special job, sir. Very responsible.
And what was that?
Quartermaster, sir,
said Nobby, saluting smartly.
You were a quartermaster?
Said Carrot. In whose army?
Duke of Pseudopolis, sir.
But Pseudopolis always lost its wars.
Ah, well...
Who did you sell the weapons to?
That's a slander, that is. They just used to spend a lot of time away for polishing and sharpening.
Nobby, this is Carrot talking to you. How much time, approximately?
Approximately? Oh, about 100%, if we're talking approximately, sir.
Nobby.
Sir?
You don't have to call me sir.
Yes, sir.
In the end, Cuddy remained faithful to his axe, but added a couple of more as an afterthought. Sergeant Colin chose a pike because the thing about a pike, the most important thing, was that everything happened at the other end of it, i.e. a long way off. Lance-constable Angua selected without much enthusiasm a short sword, and Corporal Nobbs was a kind of mechanical porcupine of blades, bows, points, and knobbly things on the end of chains. You sure, Nobby? Said Carrot. There's nothing you want to leave?
It's so hard to choose, sir.
Detritus was hanging on to his huge bow. That all you're taking, Detritus?
No, sir. Taking hint and moraine, sir.
The 2 trolls who had been working in the armory had formed up behind Detritus.
Swore him in, sir,
said Detritus.
Used troll oath.
Flint saluted amateurishly.
He said He'd kick our guhulug heads in if we didn't join up and do what we're told, sir, he said. Very old troll oath, said Detritus. Very famous, very traditional.
One of them could carry the Clatchian fire engine, Nobby began hopefully.
No, Nobby. Well, welcome to the watch, men.
Corporal Carrot.
Yes, Cuddy. It's not fair. They're trolls. We need every man we can get, Cuddy.
Carrot stood back.
Now, we don't want people to think we're looking for trouble, he said. Oh, dressed like this, sir, we won't have to look for trouble, said Sergeant Colin despondently.
Question, sir, said Angua.
Yes, Lance-constable Angua.
Who's the enemy?
Looking like this, we won't have any problem finding enemies,
said Sergeant Colin.
We're not looking for enemies. We're looking for information, said Carrot. The best weapon we can use right now is the truth. And to start with, we're going to the Fool's Guild to find out why Brother Biano stole the gun. Did he steal the gun?
I think he may have, yes.
But he died before the gun was stolen,
said Colin.
Yes, said Carrot. I know that. Now that, said Colin, is what I calls an alibi.
The squad formed up and, after a brief discussion among the trolls as to which was their left foot and which was their right, marched away. Nobby kept looking back longingly to the fire machine. Sometimes it's better to light a flamethrower than curse the darkness. 10 minutes later, they pushed through the crowds and were outside the guilds.
See?
Carrot said.
They back onto each other, said Nobby. So what? There's still a wall between them.
I'm not so sure, said Carrot. We'll jolly well find out. Have we got time? Said Angua. I thought we were going to see the day watch. There's something I must find out first, said Carrot. The fools haven't told me the truth.
Hang on a minute,
said Sergeant Colin.
This is going altogether just a bit too far by half. Look, I don't want us to kill anyone, right? I happen to be sergeant around here, if anyone's interested. Understand, Carrot? Nobby, no shooting or swordplay. It's bad enough barging into guild property, but we'll get into really serious trouble if we shoot anyone. Lord Veterinary won't stop at sarcasm. He might use,
Colin swallowed,
irony. So that's an order. What do you want to do anyway?
I just want people to tell me things, said Carrot.
Well, if they don't, you're not to hurt them, said Colin. Look, you can ask questions, fair enough. But if Dr. Whiteface starts getting difficult, we're to come away, right? Clowns give me the creeps. And he's worst of all. If he won't answer, we're to leave peacefully. And, I don't know, think of something else. That's an order, like I said. Are you clear about this? It's an order.
If he won't answer my questions, said Carrot, I'm to leave peacefully, right?
So long as that's understood.
Carrot knocked on the fool's door, reached up, caught the custard pie as it emerged from the slot, and rammed it back hard. Then he kicked the door so that it swung inwards a few inches. Boom! Someone behind it said, "Ow!" The door opened a bit further to reveal a small clown covered in whitewash and custard. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "I just wanted to get into the spirit of the thing," said Carrot. "I'm Corporal Carrot, and this is the Citizens' Militia, and we all enjoy a good laugh. 'Scuse me, except for Lance-constable Cuddy. And Lance-constable Detritus enjoys a good laugh too, although some minutes after everyone else. And we're here to see Dr. Whiteface." The clown's hair rose. Water squirted from his buttonhole. Have you got an appointment?" he said. "I don't know," said Carrot. "Have we got an appointment?" "I've got an iron ball with spikes on it." "I've got an iron ball with spikes on," Nobby volunteered. "That's a morning star, Nobby." "Is it?" "Yes," said Carrot. "An appointment is an engagement to see someone, while a morning star is a large lump of metal used for viciously crushing skulls. It is important not to confuse the two, isn't it, Mr.?" He raised his eyebrows. "Buffo, sir, but—" "So if you could perhaps run along and tell Dr. Whiteface we're here with an iron ball with What am I saying? I mean without an appointment to see him. Please? Thank you." The clown scuttled off. "There," said Carrot. "Was that all right, Sergeant?" "He's probably going to be satirical even," said Colin morosely. They waited. After a while, Lance-constable Cuddy took a screwdriver from his pocket and inspected the custard pie throwing machine bolted to the door. The rest of them shuffled their feet, except for Nobby, who kept dropping things on his. Buffo reappeared, flanked by two muscular jesters, who didn't look as though they had a sense of humor at all. "Dr. Whiteface says there's no such thing as a city militia," he ventured. "But, Dr. Whiteface says if it's really important, he'll see some of you, but not the trolls or the dwarf. We heard there's gangs of trolls and dwarfs terrorizing the city."
"That's what they say," said Detritus, nodding.
"Incidentally, do you know what it is, they?" Cuddy began, but Nobby nudged him into silence. "You and me, Sergeant," said Carrot. "And you, Lance-constable Angua."
"Oh dear,"
said Sergeant Cullen. But they followed Carrot into the somber buildings and along the gloomy corridors to Dr. Whiteface's office. The chief of all the clowns, fools and jesters, was standing in the middle of the floor while a jester tried to sew extra sequins on his coat. "Well?" "Evening, Doctor," said Carrot. "I should like to make it clear that Lord Veterinary will be hearing about this directly," said Dr. Whiteface. "Oh yes, I shall tell him," said Carrot. "I can't imagine why you're bothering me when there's rioting in the streets." Well, we shall deal with that later. But Captain Vimes always told me, sir, that there's big crimes and little crimes. Sometimes the little crimes look big, and the big crimes you can hardly see. But the crucial thing is to decide which is which." They stared at one another. "Well?" the clown demanded. "I should like you to tell me," said Carrot, "about events in this guild house the night before last." Dr. Whiteface stared at him in silence. "Then," he said, "if I don't?" "Then," said Carrot, "I'm afraid I shall, with extreme reluctance, be forced to carry out the order I was given just before entering." He glanced at Cullen. "That's right, isn't it, Sergeant?"
"What? Eh? Well, yes."
"I would much prefer not to do so, but I have no choice," said Carrot. Dr. Whiteface glared at the two of them.
But this is guild property. You have no right to...
I don't know about that. I'm only a corporal, said Carrot. But I've never disobeyed a direct order yet, and I am sorry to have to tell you that I will carry out this one fully and to the letter. Now see here. Carrot moved a little closer. If it's any comfort, I'll probably be ashamed about it, he said. The clown stared into his honest eyes and saw, as did everyone, only simple truth. Listen, if I shout, said Dr. Whiteface, going red under his makeup, I can have 12 men in here. Believe me, said Carrot, that will only make it easier for me to obey. Dr. Whiteface prided himself on his ability to judge character. In Carrot's resolute expression there was nothing but absolute, meticulous honesty. He fiddled with a quill pen and then threw it down in a sudden movement. Confound it, he shouted. How did you find out, eh? Who told you? I really couldn't say, said Carrot. But it makes sense anyway. There's only one entrance to each guild, but the guild houses are back to back. Someone just had to cut through the wall. I assure you, we didn't know about it, said the clown. Sergeant Cullen was lost in admiration. He'd seen people bluff on a bad hand, but he'd never seen anyone bluff with no cards. We thought it was just a prank, said the clown. We thought young Biano had just done it with humorous intent, and then he turned up dead, and we didn't. You'd better show me the hole, said Carrot. The rest of the watch stood to variations on the theme of at ease in the courtyard. Corporal Nobbs. Yes, Lance-constable Cuddy. What is it everyone says about dwarves? Oh, come on. You're pulling my leg, right? Everyone knows that who knows anything about dwarves, said Nobby. Cuddy coughed. Dwarves don't, he said. What do you mean, dwarves don't? No one's told us what everyone knows about dwarves, said Cuddy. Well, I expect they thought you knew, said Nobby weakly. Not me. Oh, all right, said Nobby. He glanced at the trolls, then leaned across to Cuddy and whispered in the approximate region of his ear. Cuddy nodded. Oh, is that all? Yes. Is it true? What? Oh, yes. Of course. It's natural for a dwarf. Some have got more than others, of course. That's the case all round, said Nobby. I myself, for example, have saved more than $78. No. I don't mean well endowed with money. I mean, Nobby whispered again. Cuddy's expression didn't change. Nobby waggled his eyebrows. True, is it? How should I know? I don't know how much money humans generally have. Nobby subsided. There's one thing that's true at least, he said. You dwarves really love gold, don't you? Of course we don't. Don't be silly. Well, we just say that to get it into bed.